Hello and welcome back to Cybos TV. Now for this next session we're going to be delving into all things technological and how that technology is affecting your industry, and I'm delighted to be led through this area by two expert guests who will be doing the keynote later on this morning. Immediately to my left, Mary Fran Johnson, Editor-in-Chief of CIO Magazine. Welcome to the program, good morning to you. And Christopher Peretta, good morning Christopher. You are CIO, so you must have to read Mary Fran's magazine, CIO Magazine. You're CEO of State Street, and a very good morning and welcome to this show. Mary Fran, I know you're moderating this session in just a couple of hours later on this morning. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yes, the challenge that we had was to single out a few of the pivotal technology trends that will affect the future of the financial industry. And if you were to Google around and look for a list, you could come up with 24 of them. But we settled on just a handful that we'll talk about today, both with Chris and with Peter Cowie, who is the Dean of International Studies and Relations at the University of California, San Diego. And with the help of talking with my panelists in advance and my knowledge from covering CIOs at the magazine, we were able to narrow down to a few big trends that we think will have a big impact over the next few years.
Fantastic. And Chris, what do you see the major big trends affecting companies like yourself? I know you have 5,000 employees at State Street over many, many jurisdictions and many different countries. What are the technology trends that you're thinking of uppermost in your mind?
Yeah, it is a very exciting time to be working in technology, and probably in my career, one of the most, a time where you see the biggest exponential growth in basically compute power and access to data. So the onset of cloud computing, which obviously gets a lot of hype in today's world, but really represents an ability to use almost limitless computing power at your beck and call, and the capabilities that allows us to pursue things, especially in the area of data, right, where you need really you have a global enterprise, you need a global view into that enterprise, now more than ever, and especially in financial services where you don't only have business requirements, but you have new regulatory environments which really deal at the enterprise level. So in the past, where you might be able to accommodate data on a daily basis or weekly or even monthly basis, now you're really going to look for things in real time. You're going to optimize your products in real time, you're going to optimize your operation in real time, and you're going to digitize the business. So more and more businesses, more and more entities, not only in financial services but around the world, including governments, are embarking on digital activities, now more than ever due to the ubiquitous growth or exponential growth and availability of technology at reasonable cost levels.
Well, that is that digital enterprise, the move that so many businesses around the world in every industry are trying to do more and more of their business with consumers, with partners, with suppliers in a digital fashion. And all this, of course, is very fueled by the big, enormous trend that we're all most familiar with is consumer mobility. The fact that we can bank on our phones, that we can buy clothing off our phones, the fact that in the third world nations, everyone still has a phone, even if there isn't a telecommunications infrastructure.
From where you sit, Mary Fran, looking at many different industries, the CEOs of many different industries, how would you rate this industry as far as their technological know-how, understanding, or advancement? Well,
it's an interesting conundrum for financial services because for the longest time, this industry has been the biggest spender on technology, probably by far, maybe outstripped by the military and government spending, but financial services always spent a great deal on technology. And in many regards in technology, especially like in the handling and management of data, they tend to be leaders. But at the same time, that has meant over time they've built up enormously legacy systems or heritage systems, as I believe you call them, in Europe. And this actually can be somewhat of an anchor in trying to get to some of the newer, faster turnaround applications. So that's a lot of and Chris and I have talked about this, the journey to getting to a digital enterprise internally for financial services company, it can be quite painful.
Absolutely, because Chris, you mentioned what an exciting time. You said, within your career in this area, this is the most exciting time for obvious reasons, because technology is now so much at the center of everything that's done pretty much for every company. But that with that excitement and that importance and status also comes risks, and that the technology can be quite frightening for a lot of people because when mistakes are made, they can be very, very expensive mistakes.
Right. Well, in the rare case that we ever make a mistake in technology.
Not you personally, other people.
If we're going to have a hypothetical
Yes.
conversation, that's fine. No, you're absolutely right. So you have to deal with technology. In the past, risk was mostly financial risk and maybe operational risk, but now more and more financial service organizations have to formalize the management of risk, because there's risk in everything, and what you're really debating is what residual risk am I willing to tolerate in which areas. And some areas are not willing to tolerate any residual risk, and that requires a level of engineering that's different than another area that might be important but not enterprise threatening in terms of tail risk. So there's this constant debate about how do I quantify risk, how do I manage it, and now it's frankly more and more of a senior executive decision-making process of what are the risks, number one, and number two is what are the residual risks, because business is tougher than it was in financial services, so you're always making trade-offs between performance risk and new product development and what have you. So it's another factor in executive management for the most senior level of executive management and for boards of directors as well. So it's bubbled up to the top of the house.
Absolutely, and that's why, Mary Fran, I was very keen to ask you about status and the status of the CIO and how that has changed, because it seems to me as an outsider that the CIO now has more responsibility, more risk management, and should have more status, but has the status followed the rest of the responsibilities?
Well, and a good percentage of CIOs do have much more elevated status in their companies. We do an annual survey of the magazine, and we ask CIOs, it's hundreds of CIOs around the world, and we ask them a number of questions about how they're actually spending their time. And from that, we layer CIOs into three areas: the traditional operational excellence, keep the lights on type CIOs, probably about 50% of CIOs globally. Then there is a level that are transformative, and they are usually undertaking massive new implementations of systems, things that are going to really change their business. And then probably about 15 to 20% of CIOs have reached the top of that peak, which is strategic. And they report directly to the chairman or the CEO of the organization. They are there at the beginning of all discussions. If there's a merger or an acquisition with a competitor or another company, they are part of those discussions. And that has been an elevation for the profession as a whole. It's kind of the road that everyone is traveling on, to become much more strategic and not to leave operational behind, but operational excellence tends to become a table stakes. Of course everything has to run flawlessly, right? All the time. And at the same time, CIOs have to have an enormous understanding of what's happening in the business. Because as Chris noted, boards of directors and CEOs have much broader responsibilities than they ever did before, and broader concerns. And every company in America watched what happened at Target. Yes. When the big retailer, when there was a security breach that compromised customer privacy, not only did the CIO lose her job, but the CEO did as well.
Chris, as a CIO, do you feel the pressure of that, larger responsibility, but do you equally feel that you've got the status that you deserve?
No, yeah, absolutely. You do feel the pressure constantly with technology, like my headset here. There's a lot of responsibility. More and more of the organization relies on technology to do what it has to do. Things that weren't mission critical become mission critical. So you always have that operational aspect to it and improvement efforts where you have to keep on plugging away. But you're right, I think the key is more and more of your activity has to be more strategic, and you have to rely on more senior personnel to take up the leadership banner. So I would say the whole area is getting not just me, it's my direct reports, but it's also their direct reports to take more and more of a leadership. And I do think, though, the traditional IT organization will morph over time, and the line between what is called technology and what is called business operations or finance, it's getting fuzzy, and you can see it in the way we build systems and the way we deploy them.
I've had chief marketing officers on stage at our events who have very confidently predicted that their job will merge with the CIO's job within a few years. And there are whole new alliances now at the senior leadership level 5 years ago, CIOs didn't have to spend much time thinking about marketing at all. And now most marketing organizations are running technology operation that is, in some cases, almost as large as the IT operation. And there is a huge need for the two to be very closely aligned.
Well, it'll be fascinating to hear more about this issue at the keynote, which I believe is 11 o'clock this morning. But for now, many, many thanks for joining us on Sibos TV. Mary Fran Johnson from CIO Magazine, Editor-in-Chief, and CEO of State Street, Christopher Peretta. Best wishes for your keynote. We'll hear more about that later on, and we'll be joined on Sibos TV by you, I hope, in just a few minutes. Many thanks.